Give me a break. Give me a break. Break me off a piece of that.
Welcome to the Structural Snack Down, the podcast where we build your knowledge of steel construction and break down the best snacks one bite and beam at a time. I'm your host, Zach Bauer. On each episode, we'll be diving into the world of Rayco builders. We'll be exploring the ins and outs of commercial and industrial construction, all the while taste testing and ranking some of the most delicious snacks out there. Today's episode, we're excited to sit down with Kyle Peters from A1 Development Solutions. His diverse background and his path has significant impact with South Dakota. Kyle has cultivated a background spanning from agricultural, finance, economic development, government strategy, and public relations. Well, Kyle, welcome to the Snack Down. We're going to ask some questions. We're going to jump into some KitKat snacks. Each snack, we'll actually talk about a little question here and dig into this. So first one here is we're going to start with the mocha chocolate KitKat. So I'm going to break one off here. It's
Boy,
hot.
that's wild.
It's hot out,
That's
so
quite a-
trying to keep these from being melted Kit Kats.
Going for it, huh?
You don't have to finish it all.
Okay,
A
good.
bite's good. Well, as we jump in here, as you kind of taste test this mocha chocolate,
Are we rating these?
we will. At the end here, we'll do a little ranking of trying to see what the best, all the way to the worst one.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely has some coffee.
Definitely
not
might
bad.
be the worst so far.
I was going to say, it's not a huge coffee flavor there, but why don't you start a little bit and tell a little bit about who you are and what you do with A1 Development Solutions.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This is great. I got the text that we were going to do this and have some snacks.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I did not tell you what the snacks were, so
No,
this is a
I thought,
surprise.
actually, I was thinking, I think the video you sent me was deer sticks.
Yeah.
So I was going to, or beef sticks. I was going to bring some deer sticks. Boy, that's a good thing I didn't.
That'd be a great,
that'd have been
great
an outlier
combo
right
with
there.
KitKat there.
Yeah. No, but so Kyle Peters with A1 Development. I'll talk a little bit about my background and then a little bit about A1.
Yeah.
It takes a while to unpack what we do as a company because we're kind of a niche business. There's no one that really does what we do, so it takes a while to talk about. So personally, I grew up in White Lake, South Dakota. Do you know where White Lake's at?
Is it by Watertown?
No, it's over by central South Dakota.
Okay.
Chamberlain, middle of
yeah.
Chamberlain,
Yep.
middle of
Okay.
Mitchell.
Have not been there, but I know the area.
So small town, 300 people. I grew up on a farm and ranch. My folks still farm and ranch. My brother's plugged in. We have a cow-calf operation. After I took off, I graduated high school, took off, went to SDSU, got a degree in ag business, which is where I met Jeremy on your
yeah.
guys' team.
Yeah.
We were the same age in college, whatever, buddies in college. And then spent 4 years in banking well, let me back up a minute. I got a degree from Northern State as well for banking and financial services while I was at SDSU. So spent about 4 years in banking, spent time in ag lending.
Yeah.
And ag lending is damn tough when you're a young ag lender.
Oh, yeah.
So I enjoyed it, though. It was good to see the numbers and understand the process, but had an opportunity come up to go work for the governor's office of economic development. Me and my wife moved to Pierre in 2019, January.
Okay.
Spent about 3 years in Pierre. When I was at GUED, I managed the east side of the river. And
Okay.
so I was a senior business development rep, which really doesn't mean much besides we were trying to recruit companies to come into South Dakota. So our job was to carry out the governor's agenda to try to grow development. So, things like cybersecurity at DSU was a hot topic, data centers now, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. But our job was to showcase the state.
Yeah.
So long story short, A1 would have been a new company at that time. So I have 3 business partners, Mark Mickelson, Paul Casboth, and Ty Eschenbaum. And then myself were the 4 partners of A1. And at the time when I was at GUED, A1 was just getting started.
Okay.
So we were always talking, sending business back and forth to each other. And in May of 21, I made the switch to A1.
Okay.
So I've been here just over 4 years now.
Wow.
Geez, that's a long time.
Goes quick.
Oh, my. Oh, wow. Say that out loud. That's crazy. So about A1. So what we do is what the state can't do.
Okay.
And more importantly, what really nobody can do. So I'll give you an example because it's easier just to talk about this. So if a company calls anybody from the state and says, hey, I have interest in building, and I'm going to talk specifically about South Dakota, but we're kind of everywhere in a lot of states. But in South Dakota, if somebody calls and says, I want to build a data center in South Dakota, they don't know permitting, they don't know the politics, they don't know who the engineers are, the architects, the general contractors. They don't know what site, they don't know water, wastewater. They don't really know anything. They just know that they want to be in South Dakota because the business climate is good.
Yep.
So as a state guy, and I'm going to back up a bit, when I was the state guy, it was very hard for me to meddle in those waters, be the guy that's at the county commission meeting advocating for a project, because as a state guy, you don't want to tell the locals what to do. I mean, when you're the state bureaucrat, you show up to a county commission meeting, you're not like, hey, good to see you. It's like, why are you here?
Yeah.
So we have owner's rep is what we describe ourselves as. So we essentially start working for the client directly, and we are their voice.
Okay.
We're out finding sites, finding water, really doing anything that they need, and we stay on pretty much through construction. So a typical project would be, hey, go find us a site. We find the site, we get it permitted, we help with utility integration, we help with the financing side. If we need to make introductions between different investors or whatever, or go find grant programs or whatever, we kind of do it all.
Okay.
So
wow.
Yeah, that's in a nutshell what we do. It's a lot more than that, and we've been involved in some cool stuff, but
Yeah.
that's it.
And you've probably seen incredible growth over.
We have, we've been fortunate. We've got, between the four of us, we've got a good network in the state. So we hear about things early.
Yeah.
I think is kind of where we find the most value of, we hear about a company kicking the tires around. Like if we can get an introduction to them, we can start talking about how to get it done.
Yeah.
And where they should be. And, even Nebraska, North Dakota, we do the same thing.
Okay.
Granted, we're all from here.
Yeah.
So we have a better network here, but we can kind of do it anywhere.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, as we jump into the next one here, let's talk a little bit about hunting.
Oh,
I know you're a big hunter.
my man.
And we're going to jump into some churro.
I tell you what, the
KitKat
last
here.
time I had a KitKat might have been on a hunt.
Really?
I'm not even kidding you, because we packed the worst food ever when we go hunting. Churro, huh? That's better.
That actually was pretty good.
That's not bad. I tell you what, this guy wasn't very good.
No, I
I'll just
would
say
agree. Start off with the worst.
Oof.
Pretty
That's
good.
pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm excited to rate
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah. So hunting here, you got, I know you are a successful hunter at that.
Lucky. Yeah, might be a better term.
So what do you love about hunting? Favorite hunt? Places you've been?
Yeah. So I grew up, White Lake, right? I mean, it's a podunk town in South Dakota. That's what we did,
Yeah.
right? We just went out, and deer season was the big thing, but we had good pheasant hunting. We were always out doing stuff. But I never really went on any big hunts growing up. I mean, we were a farming family, so it's not like my dad he's not a big hunter to begin with, but it's not like he was like, hey, let's go to Alaska and shoot a Dall sheep.
Yeah.
So I actually got into that more when I met my wife.
Okay.
So my wife is a big hunter too.
Okay.
She really likes the backcountry hunts. Now, granted, she doesn't want to sleep on the ground. She wants to sleep in a nice lodge if that works out. But we started to get more into the, get off the grid for 5 days stuff.
Yeah.
I tell you what, the most fun I've had was the recent hunt I did last year. It was a mountain goat hunt.
Okay.
So it was me and my brother up in British Columbia, and it was a 28-hour drive one way.
Wow.
And that sounded not so bad before we went, and we took off, and we got to Minot, North Dakota, and we're like, we got 22 hours left. But it was fun. It was a good time. And what I like about it is you just get away.
Yeah.
I live on my phone. In this job, you don't really get to turn off because the guys that we work with don't turn off, and that's why they're successful. So, I mean, I just got back from a bear hunt. We were
saw that.
We were just
I saw
joking
that.
about it.
Yeah.
And I was off the grid for a few days, and the camaraderie, man, it's just fun. I like getting off the map for a while.
Yeah.
But with 3 kids now, it's much shorter.
Yeah.
And it's the in reach comes with, and there's
Yeah.
still connectivity. But it's just fun to get away.
So how recent is that bear hunt?
I actually just got back. What was it, 2 weeks ago?
Okay.
So my buddy called me, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to go on a bear hunt?" And I'm like, "Well, 100%, I want to go on a bear hunt." And he's like, "Okay, great. It's in June in Arizona."
Okay.
And I'm like, in June in Arizona and shooting a bear, I'm like, it's gonna be 110 degrees. And he's like, no, it's in the mountains. It's high up. He's like, it's actually pretty cool up there. So when I shot my bear, I bet it was midday, 75 degrees.
Okay.
So it was
Wow.
pretty chilly,
Yeah.
but giant bears.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was fun. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I never know what to expect. I'm an antler hunter
Yeah.
and horn chaser. And when a bear comes in, I didn't know what it was going to be like, but it's a rush. It's fun.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So I grew up in Montana, born and raised in Montana.
Okay.
And hunting in Montana is much different than hunting in South Dakota.
man,
I
for
noticed that. But done black bear hunting, elk hunting, and I agree. Just
It's
to
just
be
different.
out, to be out, no one's around.
Even like East River to West River.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, like in this state, we're not even, I talk to my buddies who live on the East Coast and they think South Dakota is like the West.
Mhm.
Well, really, we don't hit West until you really hit like Montana, Wyoming.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the parcels are bigger, there's more public land.
Oh, yeah.
Like if somebody from Pennsylvania said, "Hey, I'm going to come shoot a deer East River on public land," I'd say, "Save your money."
Yeah.
Like it's just tougher, right?
Yeah.
There's not big tracts of land. There's not a lot of action. You know, in Wyoming, half the state's public ground. You can get out there and put some miles on your feet, but South Dakota's just not.
Yeah.
And it's getting worse, to be honest with you, because there's more farming. Row crop is moving west.
Yeah.
So it's just getting different, but you can still find a big deer.
Have you hunted in Montana before?
I have once. Actually, your state will not give me an
Let you-
elk tag. I tell you what, I bet it's been 5 years now.
Okay.
I've been applying,
Yeah.
donating my money to
Yep.
the GFP. No, I haven't. I haven't really spent much time. I think I was antelope hunting there
Okay.
kind of by accident. We were right on the Wyoming.
Oh yeah.
Actually, it was North Dakota, Montana
Okay.
line for deer. I
By
wasn't.
Miles City.
Yep.
Yep.
We were over by, I can't think of the name, Marmon, North Dakota. Does that sound right?
Okay.
Anyway, Western North Dakota, and I shouldn't say I was hunting in Montana. I was next to Montana.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
one of these years, your state's gonna give me a tag.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
It's a beautiful country.
It is pretty.
Yeah.
Very
Fun
pretty.
to hunt out there.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit here. The next question, I know we jumped into churro here, but how has your agricultural, upbringing,
Yeah.
being on farm and ranch and even in the school, shaped kind of the understanding of economic development and needs of kind of rural communities?
So I just had this discussion with somebody like 2 days ago, and they're like, "Hey, what does A1 spend their time on?" And I would say it's kind of like South Dakota's economy. I would say 65% of our clients are ag based.
Okay.
And the state's GDP is 65% driven from ag. That's kind of where we focus our time. But my background is, we lived it.
Yeah.
Although our upbringing was more independent cow-calf, right?
Yep.
So it's not like we were doing dairies and hog barns or whatever. It was a little bit more inclusive to our family. But I mean, it just makes sense. If you think about it, what I've said in the past before doing stuff like this is, if you think about jobs in South Dakota, it all goes back to ag. Like you think about, like even a nurse, like her patients are likely from the ag sector, whatever. I mean, it's like a car salesman. They're selling cars to somebody, in the ag market, and they'll tell you when ag is good, towns are doing well.
Yep.
When ag is down, like right now, we're cutting fat hog on cattle. I mean, the cattle prices are through the roof. We got low supply in the country. Cattle prices are going up. A lot of farmers are driving nicer pickups. When cattle were half the price they are now, there's a lot of guys that were paying Uncle Sam and not buying a pickup, So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the background of what I have, I think does well for the state. And we are all kind of like that at A1. We all grew up on a farm. We have a similar background, family operation, whatever. It bodes well. And the older, like these generations are getting farther removed from the farm. And I think somebody told me when I was at SDSU, like you growing up on a farm is probably going to take you farther than any college education. And somebody at SDSU told me that. It was actually, I think, a professor. And I'm thinking to myself, that's wild. Why would you tell me that? I'm sitting here paying money to go to school. What do you think about it? It's like, that's true. I mean, people hire people and they want to see your background, your work ethic, whatever. I mean, I can't think of anybody that I'm like, oh, he's got a degree from so-and-so. You're right. It's just, you think more about, oh, he's a good person. He's doing good work. He's a hard worker. That always overshadows a degree, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I worked before I came to Rayco. I was working at a bank, and we had branches in Sioux Falls, and then a lot of rural. And even with Rayco, we kind of bounce around from manufacturing, industrial, but also a lot of agricultural, because that's the background of where we started. And uniqueness of quote unquote big city and rural. And then you get into those rural communities and relationships and your background, your commitment, communication matters a ton, and just, building those relationships that matter to people. I mean, I think it's similar in the city as well, but,
well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because what we do at A1, we've kind of gotten away from it a little bit because our work has taken us in Sioux Falls and Rapid City and other bigger communities, but we have a heart for the rural communities because we all came from them.
Yeah.
I came from White Lake. The others came from similar small towns. We don't want to see them wither away.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the backbone of the state, right?
Yeah.
I like when Sioux Falls grows. It's great, but we also want to see White Lake grow.
Yeah.
If they can get, somebody to continue with the grocery store, or, the cafe doesn't shut down, that's a big deal. That's a big economic driver. And so like these projects we're working on, we like to see them in remote areas. Like we just helped a soybean plant south of Mitchell, and that soybean plant, although it's in Mitchell, is going to help a 30, 40 mile region because they're all
coming in.
Right. And that's an area that doesn't always get, the big project.
Yeah.
So we like to see that.
Yeah. I think that's unique about South Dakota, and Montana had similar from my upbringing, the rural communities and towns. And I know a lot of friends who I went to high school with and in college that have started moving back into the rural communities,
that's cool
to see business kind of pick back up, to come back on the farm and ranch, or to start something back in their rural communities, which is cool to see because they do tend to disappear as generations grow.
Right. Well, a bakery just opened in White Lake. And it's like, I love seeing that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully they do well. I don't know who's in the market for bakery, but it's like, it's cool that they're making the investment.
Yeah, that is cool.
It's neat.
Well, we're going to jump into the next one here. We'll jump into some frosted chocolate donut.
All right.
And
where did you find these?
It's a great company called Amazon. I think my daughters told me about these.
About Amazon?
Well, they definitely support it.
Yeah, I hear that.
These variety packs.
Ooh. All right. We're heading north, aren't we? That's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, not bad.
So what do you like to do, obviously, besides hunting and chasing kids around? Any side hobbies that you enjoy?
That's really about it, to be honest. No, we've got 3 kids. So I'm from Watertown. My wife and I moved to Watertown about 4 years ago. And I serve on city council up there. We are pretty plugged into the community. My wife spends a lot of her time on the road traveling for her job. She works for Collision Ministries. She does all the fundraising for them. Sioux Falls based, actually.
Yep. Know them well.
So she does a lot of the fundraising nationally. She's on the road quite a bit. She just got back from Nashville for a few days, and so a lot of the time we're juggling. Who's got the kids, because I travel a lot too.
Yeah.
But for fun, I tell you what. Hunting, we love doing trips with our kids. They're getting to the age where they're pretty interactive.
Yeah.
Our oldest is 4, turns 4 actually next weekend.
Oh, cool.
Time flies. Middle boy, who is an absolute, oh my gosh, he's so full of piss and vinegar. He's 2.5.
Okay.
His name's Branch. And then our youngest is Lenny. She's a girl, and she's a year old.
Oh, wow.
So it's busy. We had 3 under
that's
3.
a busy season.
Would not recommend that to anybody that's sane. I mean, we were slinging diapers like insane. I mean, we were taking the trash out once a day of diapers, like.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like, this is madness.
Yeah.
It's just, what are we doing? And like, there would be times where my wife and I would look at each other as all 3 kids are bawling their eyes out in the house over something like, man, I feel like we just got to go have a beer on the porch or something. It was wild. It still is wild, but they're getting old enough. I'll take them back to the farm, and they like to be out.
Mm-hmm.
We live in town, but it's on the way northern side of town.
Okay.
So it's pretty, and it's not very busy.
Yeah.
So like they're in the backyard doing stuff and causing trouble. And look out the window a couple days ago, and my daughter, the youngest, who's the year-old, is taking mud and just doing this with her face, like a bunch of war paint on her face. So it's good, though. They got to eat a little dirt, right?
No, I had a family friend years ago that told us when we were having kids to, don't worry about clothes getting stained, dirt in the house. Like, let them explore, let them have fun, let them do whatever. And that always stuck in my mind of like, Who cares? Let
Yeah.
them have fun and
That's just
play.
it. You know, my wife, her mom, she would always, she has a pretty cool story. So when she was pregnant with my wife,
Mhm.
her grandma, you know, they're going around. There was, I think it was like a, what do you call them? Baby showers.
Oh, yeah.
They were
Yep.
doing a baby shower, and they're, you know, going around giving her advice or whatever. And she's told this story quite a bit. And she says it got to her grandma, and her grandma's like, you know, just say yes. And she's like, well, what do you mean? She's like, when the kids want to go jump in a mud puddle with their church clothes on, just let them. I mean,
Yeah.
what's it going to hurt, right? I mean, it's going to be frustrating right away, but if they hear yes, they're not being constantly told no and, you know, disciplined and scolded or whatever. Like, there's a time for disciplining,
Yeah.
but there's also a time to say, you know what? Go jump in the mud puddle.
Yeah.
Let them be kids.
Yeah.
And so my wife is really good about
Yeah.
this. She's like, yeah, you know, let's go and, you know, do whatever. And, you know, my kids a couple nights ago were like, hey, we want to get ice cream. And it's like 8 o'clock and I'm home by myself. I'm like, I'm going to put all these kids in their car seats. We're going to go all the way across town to get ice cream. I'm like, why not? You know, that's cool.
Summer,
And
yeah.
they loved it. And the car was an absolute disaster afterwards, but it was fun.
Yeah, I agree. My kids have grown, so I have an 18-year-old, 16-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and so I'm on the latter half
Yeah.
of leaving, and my oldest is going to college this fall, and you think back those moments of almost kind of go back to that because you do miss. It goes by quick and
Oh,
it goes
man.
by fast, and you think, okay, you think back in your own life. I'm sure you would agree. You remember the experiences and the memories of things you did,
Yeah.
and those are the things that stick out. Whether it was a family vacation or an outing with dad, get ice cream, like those are the things you remember as a kid.
100%,
And
small
so,
stuff.
Yeah,
You know, my son, every night he wants to read a book before he goes to bed. And there was one night I was so busy, something was happening with a project we were on. Emails were flying in at 8 o'clock at night. And he's like, hey, would you read me one more book? And I'm like, oh my God, like I got to get going. And I'm like, you know what? No, I'm going to spend 5 more minutes. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
stuff
good.
that is just more intentional
Yeah.
that we're getting better at.
Yeah.
But with 3 of them, it's like 5 minutes turns into an hour
Oh, yeah,
of
yeah.
extra book reading.
yeah, I remember that. Well, what's a common misconception people have about economic development in a state like South Dakota specifically?
That's a good question.
And how do you work to address it or educate on it?
That's a good question. Boy, that's a lot to unpack. I'll give you my cliff notes. So we kind of deal with this quite a bit. So any project we bring into a community, we don't expect it to be welcomed with loving arms.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there's a trust factor, there's a learning curve of what the industry is. Almost every client, well, I can say this for sure. Every client we work for, we believe in, we trust, you know, we're going to sing their praises, whatever. There are some clients that we felt like we haven't connected very well, so we don't represent them.
yep.
Just because if we can't go into
It's not a fit.
right, it's not fit, or we can't go into a coffee shop and sell their, you know, whatever they're doing, their business, we're not going to expect somebody else to buy it. So I say that because in South Dakota, I feel like for the first time in a long time, we're the economic development isn't getting a great rep. And so, I mean, you hear it all the time. There's been high profile projects that have been announced or proposed, and it's like, well, do we really want this or whatever? And I'm not suggesting we do all of them. All I'm saying to your question is, what kind of value are we going to get if we say yes? And so I'll use the soybean plant, for example, south of Mitchell I was talking about. So that soybean plant is a $500 million investment. That means that soybean plant is paying sales tax to the state. Employees. Those employees are going into town. They're buying a bag of chips. They're buying homes or whatever. The sales tax dollars are turning over. So all we're saying is, yes, this soybean plant might come with a little bit of traffic. It might come with a little bit of noise. It might ruin your horizon a little bit. But what are you getting in return? Well, you're getting new kids in town. You're getting, new bodies, new homes. You know, people always say, I wish there was more places to shop. Well, retail follows rooftops. Rooftops come when there's opportunities in jobs. So that's what I think is overlooked. Sometimes, and this is our job to sell, but sometimes it's looked at as do we want a data center in South Dakota? And the answer just might be no. I don't want to look at it. But then the question is, well, let's dive into that a little bit deeper. What's it bringing? Let's bring in $2 million in annual property taxes. I hear all the time property taxes are sky high. If you add more property taxes, your rate doesn't go up, or it goes up much slower because it's socialized across everybody. So I think that, I don't know if it's a misconception.
How much of it you think is educating?
All of it. I mean, that's the thing. I think that's why, I'll just use A1 for example. We spend so much time educating ourselves before we take anything live, because as soon as the genie's out of the bottle and like, X project's coming to town, if people don't see the benefit and they just see the project, you're going to always be swimming upstream. So to me, that is the crux of it all. It's an education standpoint, and you can't keep saying no to development. Because roads are going out, bridges are going out, water infrastructure, that's all publicly funded. And unless you can have tax revenue to come in organically through projects, whatever, I'm sorry, but you're probably going to have a conversation about raising taxes. Because we're not going to never stop making roads better. And if we do, we got a problem. So we need to figure out how to grow that value, grow that revenue. What we say is we want to see development happen because it helps everybody. We don't want to see tax increases because that hurts everybody. That's what we're trying to get out there and sell. And I know there's other people that are doing it as well. And there's a big debate in the state house. Obviously, legislators are having this debate as well. And there's kind of this like pro-development team versus I'm a little bit skeptic of development. And I'm not saying they're wrong either, from the standpoint of the government has been involved a lot. You hear about tax credits, you hear about all this stuff that are kickbacks for these companies. But I mean, if you think about it, federal crop insurance is a kickback from the feds as well. Like, where are we going to draw the line? And I think the tax credits are a method in which it brings wealth back locally. Otherwise, it's just going to, DC. Where everything bad happens.
I know. I think the educational part, we find that in our industry as well. Building buildings, construction, metal buildings are a huge educational piece with people with our customers and potential customers, communicating and educating them on the product, the process, and that element of understanding what this all entails and looks like and means. And we joke a lot of times, at Rayco is, we spend more time educating just the consumer on products. And it's different across the state. I mean, we find if we're going to go east, west river, when you go out west, Rapid City area, steel buildings are preferred. They're preferred by architects, engineers. It's pushed a lot more. On the east side here, it's more of the precast concrete, and it's pushed more on that side. And so even just across the state, there's different elements of how people prefer buildings and construction and that process. But good. Well, let's jump in to birthday cake.
Absolutely.
Since you have a birthday coming up here for one of your kiddos.
Yep. Number 4.
So what got you into city council?
It's a good question. I was actually working out at the wellness center in Watertown. How was it? Was it good?
I'm not a big fan of birthday cake stuff.
A little chemically.
Yep, very chemically.
Yeah, a little Roundup in that, maybe. No, I was actually working out in the wellness center in Watertown, and the mayor, who is still the mayor, Reed Holeen, and I were talking, and he's like, "Hey, have you ever thought about running for council?" I'm like, "Of course not. I like my life." And he goes, "Well, you should really think about it." And I was like, "Well," and this was like when we first moved to town.
Yeah.
It was like 4 years ago. I think he had just won his first term.
Okay.
And so I thought about it for a while, and me and some others kept talking. I was kind of getting pushed into it a little bit, and ended up kind of getting cornered by a couple friends in Watertown. Like, you need to throw your hat in the ring. And so that would have been in April, I think, or early May. Long story short, I had like 10 days to get my petitions.
Wow.
in. And I went around and got my petitions in. Everybody was like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this?" I'm like, "Well, just sign the petition. If I can get the signatures or whatever, like, we'll take it more seriously." So I ended up getting the signatures in a couple of evenings. So I'm like, well, now I'm kind of committed in this. So, but really what got me into it, I've always been interested, and I like the idea of being at the table. We have a lot of keyboard warriors in this generation of like a lot of critical people who, you know, have a lot of good ideas, but they don't want to take the risk and run. And I never wanted to be that guy. I never wanted to be the guy that's like, well, I wish this would change, or when, you know, have a bunch of ideas, but then be critical. And it's not like I was critical of anybody in Watertown. I just felt, hey, with a young family, I think I have an opportunity to make an impact. Daycare is a hot topic. Now being brought on a city level, I think I can actually kind of help steer the ship. So that's what got me into it. And then as it relates to what we do, we're in front of city councils, county commissions, planning and zoning all the time. All the time. And
on
so
the other side.
100%. So if I can say, hey, listen, I kind of understand your perspective as well. Like when we're in front of a city council, it's always like, give. We need a permit. We need this. We need a TIF, you know, yada, yada, yada. And so I can, from their lens, say, this is what it means. Because I see the budgeting process. I see how the local dollars flow. I see how state dollars flow down to the local level. I see what happens if communities don't welcome development and how that can really quickly put a strain on their budgets, and then they're in a pickle. And then it's like, well, who are you going to go ask money for? You have to go to the state, and you have to ask the legislature for, you know, some fund money because you've been saying no to development or whatever. And that's not the only reason, but that's just the example I would give. So being a part of it, gets us in the community more. And we were the new guys, right? I mean, nobody knew who I was. Nobody like, where's White Lake? You know, who are you? Why are you here? Why are you running? And even my wife, she grew up in Castlewood. So she was 15 miles out of town. Watertown was not her school. We were, long story short, we were relatively unknown. And I think people kind of like that, though. Like when I was going around door knocking, they're like, hey, who are you? It's like, well, this is my story, whatever, young family, moving to town, want to get involved. But like, hey, we like that because a lot of the council members at the time, you know, was like, I graduated from Watertown High School in 1970s or in the 80s, which is nothing wrong with that, but diversity is good. And there's more new families being moving into Watertown. Look at Sioux Falls. I mean, how many people from Sioux Falls are plugged into the community now that don't have any connections here? They just moved here and want to be involved. So yeah, it's been a fun experience. I'm 2 years in.
Okay, 2 years so far.
On a 4-year term.
What you expected, more than expected?
It's been busy. We've gone through a lot. We lost a city manager, so we're currently going through a hiring process right now. It's been definitely more, but it's a good more. Okay. It's more of a, hey, I want to be in these meetings and understand the process, and I'm the one that's really reaching out and asking, like, hey, how does this work? Because I mean, I don't know how this works. You know, like the budget was this thick. It's like, you know, you're doing a whole city budget, and it's like there's so many light items under that, and I realize the state's no different, but we don't have as much hands-on, you know, that I would say. And the reason why is because we're a city manager form of government, so we rely on our city manager quite a bit to run with it, and then we just go in and approve it. So, and there's certain things in there, like we had $12,000 to fund the city band. It's like, hey, I love the city band, but if we're going to give them money, why are we not giving our planning and zoning members money? Because they're volunteer. So it's like, you know, how do you
balance
I'll tell you
it?
what, we caught some flack. I bet. And rightfully so, because they're like, you know, why are you, and we ended up funding them or whatever, but we're like, hey, get a plan in place because the money's going to go away at some point. Because if we fund you, we got to fund everybody, every organization in town. And, you know, you become unpopular very fast.
I have a really good friend here in Sioux Falls that ran for city council. I helped run on his marketing team.
Okay.
And
who's that?
Rich McCorris.
Yeah.
Yep. And was a part of, known him for years here in Sioux Falls, served with him, worked on other projects, decided to make the jump into city council. And man,
he's doing well.
He is. Yeah. I think he's very similar where, you know, his heart, his vision, his questions, his openness, I think is what is helpful for him as he approaches that. But even from my side, originally helping him on the marketing team, you know, it's just the whole new world of what that looks like and the process and the day to day and everything is it's a huge service. And I think those outside of that don't realize that it's, you know, you're serving the community, you're serving the people. It's not a glamorous job. You're just constantly being beat. And it's like, well, they are serving to do this, and putting time and effort. And so I think it's a commemorable, and it's a great to see. I think different voices, different perspectives. I think that's what makes councils strong.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. You want different perspectives, and like to your point, county commission, school board, city council, the hardest in my opinion, because you're looking your friends in the face every day, and you're making votes that impact their lives.
Yep.
I was just talking to Boise State at Northern State a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about this, and they're like, "Well, why would you want to do it?" Same question you just asked, and I kind of gave them the same spiel, and I was like, "Well, because it's hard to find those people. It's hard to find the people that are willing to go up there and vote no on something when their friend is advocating for it." It's other elected officials. And this isn't to discredit them, but there's a layer removed there. When you're making a decision in Pierre, a lot of times your constituents aren't there. In DC, certainly not. And those are, listen, there's some votes in Pierre and DC I'm glad I don't have to make, but there's just a level of intentional acts in a local level that you got to be aware of. But I like it to kind of come full circle, because what we do is bipartisan. We don't run as Republican, Democrat, Independent. It's just, we want to balance the budget and make this a better place. And I kind of wish that more was like that.
Yeah.
You got to have a platform, and there's things that are good with that. But, at the end of the day, the community doesn't care who flushes the toilets. They just want to make sure the toilets get flushed.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. Doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's great. I appreciate that you do that. We went off here a little bit, but we'll jump into this question. In your view, just in your perspective, what's the biggest untapped potential for economic growth in South Dakota, you think, right now, or maybe even on the horizon?
Boy, that's a good question. What's coming to mind would be data centers.
Yep, I was going to tag that if we didn't hit it.
And the reason I say that is because, well, that's the newest. I would say they're not new, but I would say the next generation of data centers are coming out. And we find it interesting because it's not like they need to be in a big community. They can kind of be
anywhere,
wherever
right?
everything makes sense. Power, water kind of comes together. We see that as I think kind of the next big industry. Why I think it fits well for South Dakota is because they don't employ 300 people. There's, depending on the size, right? But they're smaller in the employment rate. We've got like a 1.9% unemployment rate. So it's not like we've got thousands of jobs, like flip of the switch, we can get them there. So we think that makes sense. The amount of value they bring in property taxes is huge. We went and toured the Applied Digital Data Center in Ellendale, and I think, I'm going to forget it now. Long story short, they pay an insane amount of property taxes, and that's property taxes that I think it's Dickey County. I can't remember. It's North Dakota, so it doesn't matter. No, I'm kidding. It's in Ellendale. I can't think of that county, but that's $2 million. Whatever. I'm going to use $2 million. It's probably more than that. It's $2 million that just kind of fell out of a hat. Yeah. Because they had the generation and the transmission lines, and it just so happened to be in a community of a couple, 1,000 people, whatever it is. So we toured it. Applied Digital is building like a neighborhood for their workers, and they're leasing those houses back to them at a subsidized rate. So it's not like they're building $300,000 houses and saying we got to make an 8% return. They're just saying, hey, we want you to live here. We don't want you to go live somewhere else and drive in because it's 24/7, 365 on the data center. We want you here. And it's just cool to see. I mean, what would Ellendale be doing that without it? Of course not. I'm sorry, but who's gonna make an investment that large in Ellendale if they don't have all the amenities? I mean, the ethanol boom, when that happened in the early 2000s, took a lot of these good sites and is causing good impact in rural areas. But I kind of see this as the next ethanol boom. It's just if generation can keep up. Wow. It's hard to say, hey, we need 300 megawatts of power like tomorrow. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, the Oahe Dam is 2 times that. It's like, it's hard to find the generation, but if we can figure out scalability and get these data centers landed, or at a minimum, get them started at a lesser amount with a revamp process or a ramp up process rather, to get them wherever they need to be, but the amount of power they're sucking up and the taxes, the sales tax they're paying on that power too, it's huge.
Mhm.
And I'd say it this way: if we don't welcome them, Wyoming will.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
North Dakota will.
Yeah.
And so, which is fine. If folks agree that, hey, listen, we don't want this, we're going to fight it no matter what. Sounds good. But then I don't know what is waiting after this. I don't know what industry is sitting here saying we want to put billions of dollars in your economy. We haven't seen much of it. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, when we were building a project in Wyoming, Cheyenne, and they had near our facility where we were building had some big data centers there.
they kind of became the Cheyenne. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
They kind of they've been dubbed as like the data center capital.
Yeah.
They got Microsoft.
Yeah. Meta's there.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. It's massive.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's it was near our facility where we were building, and yeah, it's
And I thought Wyoming was just good for antelope hunting. Who would have thought?
yeah.
Data
I went to
centers?
college in Wyoming. I'm not a huge fan of Wyoming.
Oh,
but
come on,
there
really?
are parts of it that are beautiful.
Where'd you go to college?
In Powell, Wyoming, up by Cody, Wyoming,
What college was
Northwest College.
it? Okay.
And Cody area is pretty, but you gotta get down south more. Is
Yeah.
where it can see a
We
little more.
spend a lot of time in Gillette. We've been up to Sheridan.
Sheridan's
That's
awesome.
pretty
The
town.
Bighorn Mountains
Yeah.
up there are pretty cool.
That's really pretty
Yep.
town.
Yeah.
We've antelope hunting is kind of our thing. My
Okay.
wife and I like to do that.
Yeah.
Actually, just drew tags. Woke up this morning and email from our friends in Wyoming. Successful tag.
Nice.
How about that? Better than Montana.
I know. You're
Come
welcome.
on. Yeah.
Is it up by Gillette then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be around that area.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
yeah, looking
Cool.
forward to it.
Well, let's jump on to the last. We have two last snacks here.
Sweet.
And we have mint chocolate here.
Interesting.
So I know you're a licensed pilot
Mm.
and outdoorsman we've talked about. How does your personal passions and obviously your background tie into kind of your professional drive and development for
Aviation.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good question. So I got my license 8-9 years ago now. I flew all the time. This is before kids. We were living in Mitchell all the time. I was working at a bank, and I would go out to the airport about every night and just fly.
Mm.
And the reason I got into it is because our neighbor growing up had a ranch plane. And so he would fly this farm ranch plane around, it was a Piper Cub.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what a Piper
Yep.
Cub,
Oh, yeah.
small little plane,
Yep.
beautiful thing, like 1940s, whatever, just like out of a movie. And he would always fly real low and, just kind of do a little scouting, look at the crops, look at the cattle. He'd always be up on nice nights. And I'm like, that's awesome. Why am I not flying? And so I've always kind of hung with it, always had a passion for it. Never had the time, never had the money. If you're looking to save money, aviation ain't it. I mean, it is expensive as heck. But we were living in Mitchell, and I said, you know what? There's a school out at the airport that teaches pilots. What if we saved up? And I went and did it. Well, I went and got my license, did it pretty fast, started like in July, and I think I got my license in like September or something like that. So it was pretty fast.
Yeah.
But it's actually, you don't really need to do much for a private license. It's like 40 hours of flight time and 40, and you got to pass a written exam. And it's not like it's not rocket science to get your private license. But the step up is the instrument rating, which becomes a little trickier than commercial. Then, I got my complex and high performance rating, which essentially means I can fly fast aircraft with retractable gear.
Okay.
But I'll be honest with you, I probably haven't flown in, a year. I don't even want to admit that. That sucks. I haven't flown probably in a year. I used to fly for work a little bit. Me and my partner flew out to Rapid City and back in a day. And the world becomes much smaller when you're a pilot. It's just we left Watertown for a meeting in Rapid, and we were wheels up at 8 and we were wheels down at 3 o'clock.
Oh yeah,
it's
nice.
just we spent more time in Rapid than we did in the air. So it's handy. I love it. I wish I had more time for it. I'd really like to get my kids involved in it, because I think if my kids can get in it, I'll fly more.
Yeah.
My wife used to fly with me all the time. It was actually kind of funny. I don't even know if I should share this publicly, but I'm gonna. So we were flying into Pier one day, and I was in a 172. It was their airport plane. I was renting it, And it was a beautiful day. We were out for a joyride. It was like a Sunday, again, before kids. We went and rented the plane. We were flying around the river, which is beautiful. I mean, flying around pier is awesome. Like, we used to fly over the river, and it's just awesome. So we're coming into land, and we're like 30 feet below ground. So that's kind of when the ground effect, if you ever hear ground effect kicks in, like your plane just kind of starts to float, and then you float till you hit the runway. So that all happened, and that was good. What wasn't good is when we hit the runway, one of my brakes was locked up somehow. So how a plane works in like a 172, for example, is you've got independent brakes. So it's kind of like a tractor, right? So your rudder, you have your rudders and you have your brakes. So the brake locked up, and so the plane kind of started to go scoot across the runway like it would a tractor if you hit a brake. Yeah. And so then I overcorrected and hit the other side because I'm like, well, this isn't going to be good if I don't get her straightened out. So then I overcorrected, that brake released. Then we started doing it on the other side. And we just kind of ping ponged
back and forth.
And we stayed on the runway, and it was all good. And I didn't have to have an embarrassing moment. But I looked over at my wife, and she is white.
Yeah, I bet.
I think that might be one of the last times I got her in a plane. She got out. It was a pretty quiet ride home. Yeah. I think we were done having a fun day that day after that. But she's been a champ about
That's cool.
it. It's just, there's been some, I mean, even in a small plane, things like that happen. You know, like the ride isn't like a jet. It's bumpy. It's, you're getting your head banged around a little bit, but it's fun. And she's flown a little bit. Like, I've handed her the yoke, and she's flown, and she likes it, but she doesn't like it when the brakes lock up on the runway.
I can get that. I had a friend that flew, and this was back in Montana, and we'd go to some of these rural towns where they have basically a runway, and we flew around, and he noticed that there were antelope all across the runway. And so I just remember him like, wow, we're going to buzz by, try to scare him off before I can land. Yeah. I just never experienced that. I was like, what in the world? Or where are we? Yeah. And that's awesome. I mean, we flew through a couple times until they kind of scattered off, and then hoped that nothing would run across us. He just landed in the plane. And
it's like the Custer State Park. If you go around the wildlife loop, they have an airport. It's like a little state park airport. Pilots will have to do like a buzz to chase any deer away and make sure there's nothing deer there, and then they can come back and land. Yeah. It's pretty Western.
It's wild. It's
cool.
wild.
Yeah.
Well, last one here is blueberry muffin. I did not care for the mint. That was my opinion.
Say that was subpar. I ain't gonna lie to you. That probably ranks up with this number one, whatever that was. Mocha chocolate.
It's a little better. So, last question here. Give you some opportunity. Looking at kind of our current economic climate, what do you see as the biggest opportunities for businesses, companies looking to expand or establish themselves in South Dakota?
Yeah. Kind of probably goes hand in glove a little bit with the data center conversation, but I would say South Dakota is relatively untapped in terms of, and I'm going to talk about the larger development first, and we'll kind of bring it back down, but we do have a lot going for us here. We've got wide open spaces. Is it hard to find a good industrial site? Absolutely. And if it wasn't hard, we wouldn't have a job. So it's hard to find them, but when you do find them and you do get everything worked out, get the permits, like South Dakota is a good place to do business. I think there's a lot of community support. Like, not to keep going back to the soybean plant, but it's just a good example.
Yeah, definitely.
There was a lot of people that were against that. Well, there were some heated conversations in the county commission chambers about, do we want this? The traffic is bad. We're not against the farmers, but we don't really know if we're in love with this idea. It was tough. We got her through. Long story short, a lot of those people that were against it have now embraced it. So I think that if you can get through a little bit of the storm that we're in right now in terms of this development rhetoric of, hey, I'm not sure if we like development or not, I do feel like South Dakota embraces it.
For sure.
Especially the community. So we think that's an opportunity. In terms of other things, I just think the cost of doing business here is good. Yeah. I think we're at an area where we used to be really good about exporting our students out of these colleges. Like, I'm thinking about SDSU, DSU, we were shipping them out. Great education. I would use DSU, for example, like one of the best colleges, probably in the country for cybersecurity technology. And it's like we're training all these people 30 miles from here where we're at today.
Yeah.
And then they're going to go and get jobs East Coast, West Coast, where all these big companies are. And I think people are starting to realize that, well, hey, they're here. Like, we can develop in South Dakota. Like, let's keep them here. I think one of the biggest opportunities overall is to figure out how we keep our young people.
Yeah.
Like, if we keep exporting our young people, it's just like commodities. If we grow our corn here and ship it to Nebraska and they add value to it, meaning they run it through an ethanol plant, corn flaker, whatever, value is not really here.
Yeah.
We're exchanging dollars and the farmers are making a little bit of money some years, but the state of Nebraska is making the money because they're adding the value. They're putting the margin on it. It's no different than the kids and the students. It's like, well, if we train them here, yeah, we get a little bit of love because it's good to have high numbers and, you know, the tuition, whatever, that all works. But the value, it doesn't stay here. So we got to keep them here. I think they're doing a good job of that. You know, you see a lot of these internships where it's, you might know, it's like the Dakota Build or Build Dakota, whatever that one is, where they're like saying, these companies are saying, hey, we'll pay for your college if you stay with the, like, that is genius.
I mean, I know Avera, Sanford does that.
Yeah.
My daughter, who's going in a nursing program, SDSU, there's lots of opportunities with Avera and Sanford that, you know, commit to working there. They'll pay back your school loans. It's, you know, again, just trying to, you know, build that workforce up with locals that went to school and stay here and
keep them here.
And even, I know some of them do some rural communities where you work out in rural and they'll cover your student loans. But yeah, doing a better job of that is huge.
And the other thing I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, we haven't talked about much, is livestock development. Like dairies, hog barns, feedlots. I know not everybody's real excited about them, you know, if you live next to them. But if you think about it this way, when a dairy lands somewhere, that dairy has to feed their cattle. If you're a farmer next to them, you pretty much have a guaranteed, you know, outlet for your commodities. They're going to cut your silage, they're going to take your earlage, they're going to do whatever they need to feed those cattle. So it kind of becomes this little economic hub. And, you know, years ago now, it's probably been 10 years ago, SDSU did a economic impact study on a cow, a dairy cow. They're like, okay, so if we have one cow, how much value is the state getting? And it came out to like $26,000 for one cow, because when you feed it, you got to cut the hay, you got to rake the hay, you got to bale the hay, you got to move the bales to the pile, you got to take the pile home, you got to process the bale, feed the cow. You know, the cow dishes out milk. The milk gets sold. Well, let me back up. It's trucked. It's processed. It's sold. You start tracing all that back. It's like, that's insane. And if we don't capture that value here, somebody else is going to. So livestock development, like getting back to the rural communities we started with, it's added a lot of value. And Bryant, South Dakota is the example I give all the time. Small town. My father-in-law sells insurance there, oddly enough. And it's a town of a couple hundred people. And they have experienced significant dairy growth. And there's a cheese plant down the road. So the dairies are milking the cows, are delivering the milk to the cheese plant, processing the milk, and then they're selling the cheese. Bryant has lowered their mill levies on their taxes because they're seeing so much growth. Essentially saying, man, we've built so many new homes and businesses are coming in. We don't even need to tax you as much as we once did.
Wow, that's
when does that? When does that ever happen?
Yeah, no kidding.
That's crazy. So I think that they could be a case study for what all communities in South Dakota could be.
Yeah.
And there's equilibrium there in terms of how much is too much from a permitting standpoint. And, you know, we're not saying that a dairy should go in every section of the country. We're saying when an opportunity comes, you should think about it because it could be a good one for you.
No, that's good perspective.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get your ranking here.
Oh gosh, I kind of forgot about it.
Give me your worst and your favorite.
I'm gonna get this one out of the way. That was just, come on, can we agree that was bad? Yeah. So we're just gonna rank them.
Yeah.
So how many other 2, 4, 6? Okay, so that's terrible.
So Mocha last.
I would put this guy, the blueberry one, right after him.
Okay.
Do I have your?
You go. You do you.
Are we not doing this together?
No,
Is this me?
You do your ranking and I'll.
Yeah, I'm gonna
adjust.
Okay, that's me.
I mean, we're pretty close.
Ooh, that chocolate donut. That's worth paying attention to. Yeah, I'm just gonna do this birthday cake. So this is good.
Yeah.
And this is something I would.
So
never
donut
purchase.
is top, then birthday cake, then churro, then mint, blueberry, and mocha.
Yep.
I'd go churro first.
Wow, bold move. Really? I didn't
Pretty
peg you for
close.
that kind of guy.
Yeah, I don't know. It was it. I felt like the blueberry and the birthday too artificially
okay.
flavored.
I mean-
I just I would say there's definitely a clear. These two would definitely be top ones for
I'd
me.
say
So
Yeah, I don't think we need to waste our time on mocha
No.
chocolate again.
probably just stick to the OG if you're into KitKats.
That's what I was thinking. I was
know.
looking for it. It's not here.
no. I went extreme.
Bummer. Next time.
If you consider frosted donut as extreme, but well, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
Snack Down.
this is fun.
Great to meet you, and great insight and great stuff. And thanks for coming.
This is great. Thank you
Awesome.
very much.